The morning sun cast golden rays across Thunder Point Air Force Base as families gathered for the annual Wings of Freedom open house. October air carried the crisp promise of autumn and the distant rumble of jet engines preparing for demonstration. Flights, children pressed against safety barriers, their eyes wide with wonder at the impressive display of military aircraft arranged across the tarmac. 8-year-old Maya Chen stood quietly near the edge of the crowd, her small hands carefully protecting a folder that contained something far more sophisticated than the typical drawings other children carried. While her peers clutched simple sketches of airplanes and fighter jets, Maya's folder held meticulously detailed flight plans, complete with navigation charts, fuel calculations, and weather analysis that would impress seasoned pilots. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story inspires you, make sure to subscribe because we have something extraordinary waiting for you tomorrow. Maya possessed an unusual combination of intense focus and methodical precision that distinguished her from other children. Her age, her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and her clothes showed the telltale signs of someone who spent time around aircraft rather than typical childhood activities. She moved with quiet confidence that reflected years of careful observation and systematic study. Dr. Maya Chen, Maya's mother, stood beside her daughter with protective awareness born from experience managing emergency rooms at Thunder Point General Hospital. Her medical training had taught her to recognize exceptional capabilities alongside potential complications, and Maya's intellectual gifts created both wonderful opportunities and challenging social situations. Captain David Chen, Maya's father, observed the gathering crowd with the relaxed bearing of someone comfortable in military environments. His 15 years as an Air Force navigator had given him deep appreciation for aviation excellence and thorough understanding of the technical complexities that fascinated his daughter. David's flight suit and navigator wings marked him as someone who understood both the beauty and demands of military aviation. The Chen family had arrived early to secure optimal viewing positions for the day's flight. Demonstrations. David's assignment to Thunder Point's navigation training squadron had provided Maya with unprecedented access to aircraft and flight operations. Fostering her passionate interest in aviation from an early age, Colonel Marcus Stone emerged from the base operations building with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to absolute authority. At 54, Stone embodied the image of a career military officer who had risen through strict adherence to traditional protocols and unwavering belief in established hierarchies. His perfectly pressed uniform and polished insignia reflected an obsession with military order that had served him well. Throughout his 30-year career, Stone had commanded Thunder Point Air Force Base for 4 years, during which time he had built a reputation for maintaining rigid discipline and operational efficiency. His leadership style favored proven procedures over innovation, and he possessed little patience for civilian interference in military operations. The annual open house represented an unwelcome obligation to subject his base to public scrutiny. Though he recognized its importance for community relations, Major Jennifer Walsh, approached Colonel Stone carrying status reports from various demonstration areas. At 38, Jennifer had established herself as one of the base's most capable operations officers, earning respect through demonstrated competence and professional excellence. Her approach to military service combined technical precision with genuine enthusiasm for sharing aviation knowledge with others. Jennifer had grown up in a military family that encouraged her interest in flying from childhood. Her father, a retired Air Force pilot, had taught her that aviation excellence required both technical knowledge and respect for diverse perspectives. Unlike some colleagues, Jennifer believed that passion for flying could emerge from unexpected sources and deserved encouragement regardless of background. Colonel Stone, Jennifer announced as she joined him near the operations building. All demonstration. Flights are prepared and safety protocols are established. Weather conditions are optimal for showcasing our aircraft capabilities to maximum advantage. Stone nodded approvingly at Jennifer's efficient report, pleased with her professional competence and systematic approach to operational responsibilities. Her military bearing and technical expertise fit comfortably within his understanding of proper Air Force professionalism. Chief Master Sergeant Robert Martinez supervised the arrangement of static aircraft displays with methodical attention to detail that characterized his 28 years of military service. At 48, Robert had seen enough open houses to understand the importance of presenting military aviation professionally while maintaining appropriate security around sensitive equipment. Robert possessed practical wisdom that came from extensive experience with aircraft maintenance and crew training. His respect for technical competence transcended rank and formal credentials. Having worked with enough pilots and technicians to recognize genuine expertise regardless of its source, Sergeant Martinez called Technical Sergeant Lisa Cooper as she approached with questions about crowd management procedures. Should we adjust the barrier positions around the F-35? Some of the younger visitors are showing intense interest in the aircraft systems. Robert considered the question carefully, balancing public engagement with security requirements. His experience had taught him that civilian interest in military aircraft was generally positive and should be encouraged within appropriate boundaries. Maintain current barrier positions, Robert decided. Just ensure you're available to answer questions and maintain safety protocols. These families don't often get opportunities to observe these aircraft up close. Maya had been systematically working her way closer to the F-35 Lightning to display. Her folder clutched carefully as she studied the aircraft's configuration and control surfaces. Her movements were purposeful rather than random, reflecting systematic observation of specific technical features that captured her attention. The child's approach differed markedly from other young visitors who were drawn primarily by the impressive size and power of the fighter jet. Maya's interest focused on understanding how design choices affected performance characteristics. Questions that demonstrated sophisticated thinking about aeronautical engineering principles. "Dad," Maya said quietly, tugging on Captain Chen's sleeve as they approached the F-35 display. "Look at the engine intake design. The boundary layer diverters are positioned to optimize airflow at supersonic speeds. while maintaining efficiency during subsonic operations. David looked down at his daughter with familiar mixture of pride and amazement at her technical vocabulary and understanding. Maya's self-directed study of aviation had produced knowledge that exceeded many adult enthusiasts. Though he sometimes worried that her intellectual gifts created social challenges with children her age. "That's exactly right, sweetheart," David replied, his voice reflecting genuine respect for Maya's insights. "Most people don't notice those engineering details or understand their importance for aircraft performance." Dr. Sarah Chen observed her daughter's technical discussions with complex emotions that reflected both maternal pride and concern about Maya's unusual intellectual development. As a physician, Sarah understood that gifted children often faced social challenges requiring careful navigation and family support. The Chen family's circumstances had provided Maya with exceptional exposure to aviation through David's military career. But her passionate learning had been entirely self-directed through library research, online resources, and countless hours of observation at various air bases where David had been stationed. Colonel Stone continued his inspection tour of the open house preparations, his attention focused on ensuring that all activities reflected positively on base operations and military professionalism. His route brought him past the static aircraft displays where civilian families were gathering to observe the impressive collection of military hardware. Stone's interactions with civilian visitors were typically brief and formal, reflecting his belief that public relations duties were necessary obligations rather than opportunities for meaningful engagement. His military training had emphasized maintaining appropriate distance between operational personnel and civilian observers. As Stone approached the F-35 display area, his attention was drawn to a small group gathered near the aircraft where animated technical discussions seemed to be taking place. The colonel's instinctive response to civilian questions about military equipment was to ensure appropriate boundaries were maintained and no sensitive information was disclosed. Maya had been studying the F-35's avionics configuration with intense concentration, comparing its systems to theoretical knowledge she had acquired through extensive research. The similarities and differences between her understanding and the actual implementation raised questions she was eager to explore. "Excuse me," Maya said politely as she noticed Colonel Stone approaching the group, her voice carrying careful respect that her parents had taught her to show military personnel. "Sir, I was wondering about the sensor fusion capabilities of this aircraft and how they integrate with the pilot's situational awareness systems." The question hung in the air with unexpected technical sophistication, creating a moment of surprised silence among adults present. Here was an 8-year-old child using terminology that suggested genuine understanding of complex avionics concepts rather than casual curiosity. About fighter jets. Colonel Stone looked down at Maya with the patronizing expression adults often reserved for children who had overheard technical conversations without understanding their complexity. His immediate assumption was that the child had memorized terminology from documentaries or video games without grasping underlying engineering principles. "Young lady," Stone replied with condescending authority, "these are highly sophisticated military aircraft that require years of specialized training to understand properly. Perhaps you should focus on enjoying the demonstration flights rather than asking about technical subjects beyond your comprehension level." The dismissive tone in Stone's response reflected his fundamental assumptions about civilian capability and appropriate boundaries between military expertise and public curiosity. His reaction was automatic rather than considered, based on institutional prejudices rather than careful evaluation of Maya's actual knowledge. Kea felt the familiar sting of adult condescension she had encountered countless times when her technical interests exceeded expectations for an 8-year-old child. Stone's assumption that she lacked genuine understanding was particularly frustrating because it prevented meaningful discussion of subjects that genuinely fascinated her. "Sir?" Maya continued with quiet persistence, maintaining respectful tone while refusing to abandon her intellectual curiosity. "I understand these are complex systems, but I've been studying avionics and flight operations for several years. I believe there might be some interesting optimization possibilities in the mission planning software." The child's refusal to accept dismissal, combined with her continued use of technical language, began to irritate Colonel Stone. As he processed what he perceived as inappropriate civilian interference in military technical discussions. His professional training had not prepared him to deal with children who refused to accept limitations on their intellectual curiosity. Chief Master Sergeant Martinez had been observing the interaction between Colonel Stone and Maya with growing interest, recognizing that the child's questions demonstrated unusual technical sophistication for someone her age. His experience working with aircraft systems had taught him to recognize genuine understanding regardless of its source. "Colonel," Robert interjected carefully, his voice reflecting both military respect and growing curiosity about Maya's technical knowledge. "The young lady seems to have some interesting observations about aircraft systems. Perhaps we should hear what she has to say." Stone's expression tightened as he recognized that his senior enlisted advisor was questioning his handling of the civilian interaction. The suggestion that a child's observations might have merit challenged his fundamental assumptions about military authority and technical expertise. Captain David Chen had been watching the exchange between his daughter and the base commander with growing tension, recognizing that Maya's intellectual gifts were creating exactly the kind of adult resistance that had complicated her educational and social development throughout her young life. "Colonel Stone," David said carefully, his voice reflecting both parental protection and respect for military authority. "Maya has been studying aviation since she was very young. She possesses quite extensive knowledge about aircraft systems and flight operations." The defense of his daughter's capabilities came naturally to David, though he understood that challenging a base commander's judgment carried potential consequences for his family's standing in the military community. His protective instincts outweighed concerns about protocol. Maya reached into her folder and carefully withdrew a detailed flight plan. Holding it with reverence, someone might show a precious document. The plan's sophistication was immediately apparent as something far beyond typical children's projects, featuring professional-level navigation charts, fuel calculations, and weather analysis. "Colonel Stone," Maya said with quiet confidence, "I'd like to show you something that might interest you." This is a complete mission flight plan for an F-35 training sortie that incorporates several efficiency improvements in routing and fuel management. The technical specificity of Maya's explanation, combined with the obvious sophistication of her flight planning documentation, created a moment of uncertain silence among assembled adults. Here was a child making claims about military flight operations based on what appeared to be genuine technical understanding rather than imagination. Colonel Stone stared at the flight plan in Maya's hands, his mind struggling to process the possibility that an 8-year-old civilian child might possess insights relevant to military aviation operations. His institutional training had not prepared him to evaluate technical contributions from such an unexpected source. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So, if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Back to the story. The morning sun climbed higher over Thunder Point Air Force Base as crowds continued gathering for the day's flight demonstrations, unaware that a small folder containing detailed flight plans was about to challenge every assumption about expertise, authority, and the unexpected sources from which aviation excellence could emerge. The next few minutes would test whether institutional pride could overcome evidence of genuine technical competence, and whether a decorated military officer could acknowledge that brilliance truly recognized no rank, age, or social status when it came to understanding the principles that made advanced aircraft fly efficiently and safely. The flight plan in Maya's hands caught the attention of several nearby families as children pointed excitedly at its professional appearance. Unlike the simple drawings scattered around the viewing area, Maya's documentation featured detailed navigation charts, precise fuel calculations, weather analysis, and route optimization that suggested serious aeronautical planning rather than childhood fantasy. "Can I see that?" asked a curious boy about Maya's age, his own crayon drawing of an airplane forgotten as he stared at the sophisticated documentation that looks like real pilot stuff. Maya smiled with shy pride that marked her interactions with other children, always eager to share her technical interests despite past experiences with peers who couldn't understand her enthusiasm for complex aviation concepts. "I used Great Circle navigation principles for optimal fuel efficiency," she explained simply, and calculated alternate routing options based on potential weather developments throughout the mission duration. The boy's confused expression reminded Maya that most children her age weren't familiar with advanced navigation terminology, a reality that had contributed to her social isolation at school. She had learned to translate her technical knowledge into simpler terms when talking with classmates. Though the process sometimes felt like diminishing the beauty of what she understood, Colonel Stone observed this exchange with growing irritation. Interpreting Maya's technical vocabulary as pretentious showing off rather than genuine passion for aviation principles. His assumptions about appropriate childhood behavior didn't accommodate 8-year-olds who spoke fluently about aerospace engineering concepts. "Young lady," Stone interjected with sharp authority, his voice cutting through Maya's explanation. To the other child, "Think you've been watching too many aviation documentaries? Real flight planning requires professional training and extensive experience, not children's games and imagination." the colonel's public dismissal of Maya's knowledge in front of other families created an uncomfortable moment of silence as parents exchanged uncertain glances. Some recognized the harshness of criticizing a child's intellectual interests, while others deferred to military authority without questioning its appropriateness. Major Jennifer Walsh has been approaching the group to check on crowd management when she overheard Colonel Stone's sharp rebuke of the young girl. Jennifer's own childhood experiences with adult skepticism about her aviation dreams made her sensitive to situations where children's interests were being discouraged rather than nurtured. Colonel Jennifer said diplomatically as she joined the conversation, "Perhaps we could examine the young lady's flight planning work. Understanding civilian interest in aviation helps us evaluate our educational outreach effectiveness." Stone's expression reflected annoyance at having his judgment questioned by a subordinate officer, particularly in front of civilian observers. Jennifer's suggestion that Maya's flight plan might merit serious consideration challenged his assessment of the situation and his authority to control the interaction. Chief Master Sergeant Martinez moved closer to examine Maya's flight planning documentation, his experienced eye immediately recognizing elements that went far beyond typical children's projects. The navigation calculations and fuel planning suggested knowledge of advanced aeronautical principles that Martinez had learned through decades of working with flight operations. "Miss," Martinez said gently, addressing Maya with respectful tone. He reserved for people whose expertise he recognized. "Would you mind explaining how you developed these fuel consumption calculations? I'm curious about your methodology for efficiency optimization." Maya's face brightened with enthusiasm at encountering an adult who seemed genuinely interested in her technical work rather than dismissing it as childish fantasy. Martinez's questions suggested real understanding of the principles she had incorporated into her planning. "I studied how different flight profiles affect fuel burn rates," Maya explained eagerly, her voice gaining confidence as she found someone willing to engage with her ideas. "By optimizing altitude transitions and adjusting throttle settings during various flight phases, you can achieve significant efficiency improvements without compromising mission objectives." The systematic approach Maya described represented sophisticated engineering thinking that impressed Martinez considerably. Her ability to translate theoretical knowledge into practical operational improvements demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative reasoning that advanced military aviation. Captain David Chen watched his daughter's technical discussion with Master Sergeant Martinez with mixed emotions of pride and protective concern. Maya's exceptional knowledge often attracted adult attention that created complicated social situations for their family, particularly when senior military personnel became involved. Maya's been interested in flight operations since she was very small, David explained to the gathering group. His voice reflecting both parental pride and awareness of how unusual his daughter's capabilities appeared to others. She spends hours studying navigation principles and aircraft performance characteristics. Dr. Maya Chen joined her husband near the edge of the growing crowd, her physician's instincts recognizing the developing dynamics of a situation that could either validate or humiliate their daughter, depending on how the adults chose to respond. Her protective instincts were heightened by Colonel Stone's obviously dismissive attitude. Perhaps we should let Maya demonstrate her flight planning knowledge, Sarah suggested diplomatically, hoping to redirect the conversation toward practical demonstration rather than theoretical debate. Actions often provide better evidence than explanations. Colonel Stone's immediate reaction was to reject any suggestion that would appear to validate a child's claims about military flight operations. His institutional pride couldn't accommodate the possibility that a civilian, key-rolled, might understand aeronautical principles that military professionals used daily. Absolutely not, Stone stated firmly, his voice carrying the finality of command authority. This is a professional military air show, not a playground for children's fantasies. We have serious flight demonstrations scheduled, and I won't have them interrupted by amateur flight planning exercises. The harshness of Stone's refusal created visible discomfort among the civilian families who had gathered to watch the interaction. Several parents exchanged meaningful glances that reflected their disapproval of an adult treating a child's interests with such obvious contempt. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Hayes approached the group carrying communication equipment from the Flight Operations Center. Her eagerness to support senior officers evident in her quick stride and formal bearing. At 35, Patricia had built her career on anticipating superiors' needs and providing efficient operational support. Colonel Stone, Patricia announced as she reached the gathering. The F-35 demonstration pilot has reported a minor technical issue that will delay the scheduled flight by approximately 30 minutes. Maintenance is conducting system diagnostics. Stone nodded at Patricia's report while feeling frustrated that technical problems were disrupting his carefully planned demonstration schedule. The delay would provide unwanted additional time for civilian interactions that he preferred to minimize. Maya held her flight plan with careful protection as she sensed the adult conversation moving away from interest in her work toward dismissal of her entire approach to understanding aviation. The familiar pattern of initial adult curiosity followed by institutional rejection had characterized many of her attempts to share her technical knowledge. "Sir," Maya said quietly, her voice carrying respectful persistence that had helped her navigate countless situations where adults underestimated her capabilities. "During the maintenance delay, would it be possible to review my flight planning methodology? I believe there might be some efficiency improvements worth considering." The child's refusal to accept dismissal, combined with her continued use of formal, respectful language, created a moment of tense silence as Colonel Stone processed what he perceived as inappropriate civilian persistence in challenging military authority and operational procedures. Major Walsh recognized the educational opportunity that Maya's request represented and the potential positive impact of encouraging civilian interest in aviation, particularly from someone demonstrating genuine technical understanding rather than casual curiosity. "Colonel," Jennifer suggested carefully, "a brief review of civilian flight planning methodology might actually enhance our community relations objectives. The base could benefit from positive interaction with local families who support our mission." Stone's expression darkened as he interpreted Jennifer's suggestion as another challenge to his authority and judgment. The possibility that accommodating a child's request might be viewed as positive. Community engagement conflicted with his instinctive preference for maintaining clear boundaries between military operations and civilian interference. Captain Chen had been observing the developing tension with growing awareness that his daughter's intellectual gifts were creating institutional resistance that could affect their family's relationship with the base community and his own. CAREER Progression. Technical Sergeant Amanda Rodriguez approached the group carrying maintenance reports from the F-35 diagnostic procedures. Her attention focused on ensuring that all systems were properly evaluated before clearing the aircraft for demonstration flights. Colonel Stone, Amanda reported professionally, the F-35 maintenance check is complete. But we discovered an interesting anomaly in the mission planning software that's causing inefficient fuel consumption calculations during route optimization. The mention of flight planning software problems created an unexpected connection to Maya's technical expertise. Though Stone remained resistant to any suggestion that civilian contributions might be relevant to military operational challenges, Master Sergeant Martinez had been studying Maya's flight planning documentation with growing appreciation for the sophisticated methodology incorporated into her calculations. His experience with flight operations allowed him to recognize innovations that might have practical applications for improving military aircraft efficiency. Colonel Martinez said with careful military formality, "This young lady's approach to fuel optimization incorporates some concepts that might be relevant to the software issues Sergeant Rodriguez just reported. Her methodology could provide insights into the efficiency calculations. The suggestion that Maya's flight planning might contribute to solving actual military technical problems represented exactly the kind of civilian interference that Stone was determined to prevent." His response reflected institutional prejudices rather than technical evaluation of Martinez's assessment. "Sergeant Martinez," Stone replied with sharp authority, "military flight operations require extensive testing and professional validation. Children's flight planning exercises have no relevance to serious operational software systems, regardless of how sophisticated they might appear to amateur observers." The colonel's public dismissal of Martinez's technical assessment created visible tension among the military personnel present, several of whom recognized that Stone was rejecting experienced enlisted expertise in favor of maintaining hierarchical authority over civilian interactions. Maya listened to the adult debate about her flight planning with growing understanding that the situation had moved beyond simple technical discussion to become a conflict between different approaches to recognizing and validating knowledge. Her years of encountering adult skepticism had taught her to recognize when institutional pride was preventing genuine consideration of new ideas. "Colonel Stone," Maya said with quiet dignity, her voice carrying careful respect that her parents had taught her while maintaining her intellectual integrity. "I understand your concerns about proper procedures and professional standards, but sometimes good ideas can come from unexpected places, and evaluating them doesn't require changing official programs or abandoning professional requirements. The moral clarity that Maya demonstrated in articulating principles of intellectual openness impressed several adults present while highlighting the ethical dimensions of Stone's refusal to consider her contributions based purely on her age and civilian status. Dr. Elizabeth Freeman emerged from the base medical facility, carrying routine health and safety reports for the air show activities. Her presence adding another professional perspective to the developing situation around Maya's flight planning demonstration request. As the base's consulting aviation psychologist, Freeman had extensive experience evaluating pilot capabilities and understanding the psychological factors that contributed to aviation excellence. Her training had taught her to recognize exceptional aptitude, regardless of its source or the age of its possessor. What seems to be the discussion here? Freeman asked diplomatically as she observed the tense interaction between military personnel and the civilian family. Her professional curiosity engaged by the dynamics she was witnessing. Major Walsh quickly briefed Freeman on Maya's request to demonstrate her flight planning methodology, and Colonel Stone's refusal to accommodate civilian participation in military aviation activities. The summary highlighted the tension between encouraging community interest and maintaining institutional boundaries. Freeman's attention focused immediately on Maya and her carefully constructed flight plan documentation, her psychological training, allowing her to recognize signs of genuine technical competence rather than simple childhood enthusiasm for aviation. Miss, Freeman said gently, addressing Maya with professional interest. Would you mind describing your background in aviation and how you developed your knowledge of flight planning principles? Maya's response would prove crucial in determining whether the developing situation would validate her exceptional capabilities or confirm the adult's assumptions about the limitations of civilian children's understanding of complex technical subjects. I started reading about aircraft when I was 5, Maya began, her voice steady despite the growing circle of adults focused on her every word. My dad's work at different air bases gave me opportunities to observe flight operations. I noticed that some missions seemed to use more fuel than necessary, even when flying similar routes. Freeman nodded encouragingly, recognizing that Maya's observational approach to learning reflected genuine scientific curiosity rather than rote memorization of technical facts. Her description suggested the kind of pattern recognition that characterized gifted individuals across multiple disciplines. I started researching navigation principles and fuel management techniques. Maya continued, gaining confidence as she found adults willing to listen seriously to her background. At first, the mathematics was challenging, but I kept studying until I could understand the relationships between altitude, airspeed, and fuel consumption. Captain Chen felt a familiar surge of pride mixed with concern as he listened to his daughter describe her self-directed education in terms that made her sound more like a graduate student and an elementary school child. It's created wonderful opportunities alongside complicated social challenges. The base libraries at different installations have technical manuals, David added, hoping to provide context that would help the military personnel understand how Maya had access to advanced aviation materials. Flight operations personnel got used to seeing her reading during my duty shifts, and some started explaining practical applications of what she was learning. contrast to Sergeant Martinez's weathered features reflected growing respect for the systematic approach Maya had taken to developing her aviation knowledge. Her description suggested years of sustained study rather than casual interest, combined with practical observation that connected theoretical understanding to real-world applications. Colonel Stone listened to Maya's educational background with mounting irritation, interpreting her advanced vocabulary and technical knowledge as evidence of coaching rather than genuine understanding. His institutional mindset couldn't accommodate the possibility that exceptional learning could occur outside formal educational structures. Dr. Freeman, Stone interjected with barely concealed impatience. While this child's enthusiasm for aviation is admirable, we have scheduled demonstrations that require our immediate attention. I'm sure her parents can explain basic flight operations to her during the official presentations. The colonel's dismissive reference to basic flight operations revealed his fundamental misunderstanding of Maya's actual knowledge level, while demonstrating his determination to avoid any validation of civilian technical contributions to military aviation understanding. Major Walsh had been observing the interaction with growing recognition that Maya represented exactly the kind of exceptional individual that the Air Force needed to identify and encourage. Her combination of technical knowledge and genuine passion for aviation suggested potential for significant future contributions to aerospace development. Colonel Jennifer said diplomatically, "Part of our mission involves inspiring the next generation of aviation professionals. This young lady clearly has exceptional interest and knowledge that we should encourage rather than dismiss." Stone's expression tightened as he processed what he interpreted as another challenge to his authority from a subordinate officer. Jennifer's suggestion that Maya deserved encouragement conflicted with his preference for maintaining clear boundaries between military expertise and civilian amateur interests. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez had been reviewing her maintenance reports while listening to the conversation, her technical background allowing her to appreciate the sophistication of Maya's self-directed education. Amanda's experience with aircraft systems made her sensitive to genuine technical competence regardless of its source. Colonel Stone, Amanda interjected carefully, "If this young lady has been studying flight operations for 3 years, she might actually understand more about efficiency optimization than some of our junior personnel. Perhaps we should evaluate her knowledge before making assumptions about her capabilities." The suggestion that a civilian child might possess technical knowledge superior to trained military personnel represented exactly the kind of institutional challenge that Stone was determined to prevent. His response reflected protective instincts about Air Force professional standards rather than genuine interest in technical assessment. Maya reached into her jacket pocket and withdrew a small leather credential holder that she had been carrying throughout the morning. Her careful handling of the document suggested it contained something important, though none of the adults could imagine what official documentation an 8-year-old child might possess. "Dr. Freeman," Maya said quietly, offering the credential holder with the same respectful formality she had maintained throughout the increasingly tense conversation. "This might help explain my background in aviation. Freeman accepted the holder with curious interest, expecting to find perhaps a youth aviation club membership or flight simulator certificate that would provide context for Maya's technical knowledge. What she discovered instead caused her professional composure to falter completely. "This is a student pilot certificate," Freeman announced with obvious astonishment, her voice carrying across the gathering crowd as she examined the official Federal Aviation Administration document. Miss Maya Chen single-engine aircraft, issued 4 months ago. The silence that followed Freeman's announcement was profound and uncomfortable as every adult present processed the implications of what they had just learned. Here was an 8-year-old child who possessed official government certification for pilot training, fundamentally challenging every assumption they had made about her technical credibility. Colonel Stone stared at the pilot certificate in Freeman's hands with expression that reflected complete cognitive disorientation. His institutional worldview had no framework for processing the reality that a civilian child held aviation credentials that many of his junior officers were still working to achieve. "That's impossible," Stone stated flatly, his voice carrying authority of someone rejecting information that conflicted with fundamental beliefs about appropriate qualifications and institutional order. "Children cannot obtain pilot certificates. There must be some mistake." Master Sergeant Martinez stepped forward to examine the certificate document more closely, his experience with aviation credentials allowing him to verify its authenticity and validity. The official FAA seals and registration numbers confirmed that Maya's certification was genuine rather than some elaborate family joke. Colonel Martinez reported with professional formality, "This appears to be a legitimate student pilot certificate issued by the Federal Aviation Administration. The documentation includes all required endorsements and medical certifications. It's the official confirmation that Maya's pilot certificate was authentic rather than fraudulent, forced Stone to confront the uncomfortable reality that his dismissive assessment of her capabilities had been fundamentally wrong. His professional reputation was now at stake in ways he hadn't anticipated. Major Walsh moved closer to examine the certificate herself, her pilot training allowing her to recognize the significance of Maya's achievement. Obtaining a student pilot certificate required extensive study, ground school training, and successful completion of written examinations administered by federal authorities. "This is remarkable," Jennifer said with genuine admiration, her voice reflecting both professional respect and personal excitement at encountering such exceptional achievement. "Maya, you're probably the youngest student pilot in Nevada history." Maya nodded shyly, pleased to finally receive recognition for an accomplishment that had required months of intensive study and ground training. Her pilot certificate represented validation of technical knowledge that adults had been dismissing as childish fantasy throughout the morning's confrontation. "My flight instructor said I was the youngest student he'd ever trained," Maya explained with quiet pride. "But he also said I was one of the most dedicated. I studied for the written examination for 8 months before I was old enough to take it." Captain Chen watched the military personnel's stunned reactions to his daughter's pilot certificate with complicated emotions that mixed parental pride with awareness that Maya's exceptional achievements often created more problems than they solved in social situations. "We've tried to keep Maya's certificate private," David explained to the gathering group, "because we didn't want her to become a curiosity or have people make assumptions about our family based on her unusual accomplishments." The Chen family's decision to maintain privacy about Maya's pilot certificate reflected their understanding that exceptional achievements by children often attracted unwanted attention that could interfere with normal family life and social development. Dr. Freeman continued examining the pilot certificate documentation with professional fascination. Her psychological training helping her appreciate the exceptional cognitive capabilities that Maya's achievement represented. Obtaining pilot certification at age 8 required intellectual abilities that occurred in perhaps 1 in 50,000 children. "Maya," Freeman said with respectful curiosity, "would you mind describing your ground training experience? Particularly interested in how you managed the cognitive demands of aviation education at such a young age." Maya's response to Freeman's question would provide insight into the learning processes that had enabled her extraordinary achievement while potentially offering valuable information about identifying and developing exceptional aviation talent in other young people. "The ground school classes were challenging because I was the only child," Maya replied thoughtfully, "but my instructor treated me like any other student. He said that if I could understand the concepts and pass the tests, age didn't matter for learning basic aviation principles." The inclusive approach Maya described reflected progressive thinking about aviation education that recognized capability rather than demographic assumptions. Her instructor's willingness to evaluate students based on demonstrated competence rather than age had enabled exceptional individual development. Dr. Maya Chen had been observing the military personnel's shocked reactions to her daughter's pilot certificate with growing anxiety about the implications of such widespread knowledge of Maya's unusual accomplishments. Her maternal instincts warned that exceptional children often became targets for exploitation rather than appropriate nurturing. Dr. Freeman, Sarah said carefully, "While we're proud of Maya's achievements, we hope that any discussion of her capabilities will respect our family's privacy and her need to maintain normal childhood experiences." The protective concern that Sarah expressed reflected legitimate parental worries about how institutional attention might affect Maya's social development and family relationships. Exceptional children required careful balance between recognizing their gifts and protecting their emotional well-being. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes had been listening to the conversation with growing awareness that the situation had evolved far beyond simple civilian curiosity about military aircraft. Maya's pilot certificate created complications that transcended normal airshow protocols and required careful consideration of appropriate responses. Colonel Stone, Patricia said hesitantly, recognizing the political sensitivity of the developing situation. "Perhaps we should contact Base Public Affairs about how to handle media interest if word of this young lady's pilot certificate becomes public knowledge." Stone's immediate concern shifted from dismissing Maya's technical knowledge to managing potential publicity complications that could affect his command, reputation, and the base's public image. an 8-year-old licensed pilot critiquing military flight operations could create exactly the kind of media attention that military leadership preferred to avoid. Technical Sergeant Rodriguez reviewed Maya's pilot certificate with the technical eye of someone familiar with aviation credentialing processes, her examination confirming that every requirement had been properly met and documented. Amanda's respect for Maya's achievement was genuine and professionally grounded. "This represents an exceptional accomplishment," Amanda stated definitively, her voice carrying authority of someone whose technical expertise commanded respect throughout the base. "Miss Chen has demonstrated aviation knowledge that exceeds many professional standards." The formal recognition of Maya's exceptional capabilities by experienced military personnel created a moment of institutional acknowledgement that transcended previous dismissive attitudes while establishing her credibility. For any future technical discussions, Master Sergeant Martinez had been studying Maya's flight planning documentation with renewed appreciation now that her pilot certificate had established her technical credibility beyond question. Theoretical knowledge was clearly grounded in practical aviation training rather than simply academic study, Miss Chen, Martinez said with genuine professional interest. "Given your pilot training and flight planning knowledge, I'd very much like to hear your technical assessment of how your efficiency calculations might apply to military flight operations." Maya's face brightened with enthusiasm at finally encountering military personnel who were willing to engage seriously with her technical ideas rather than dismissing them based on assumptions about age and civilian status. Martinez's question suggested genuine respect for her expertise. "The primary inefficiency I noticed," Maya began confidently, "involves suboptimal altitude selection during cross-country flights. Most mission planning software uses standard altitude assignments without considering specific aircraft performance, characteristics, and current atmospheric conditions." The technical sophistication of Maya's analysis impressed everyone present who possessed sufficient aviation background to evaluate its accuracy. Her systematic approach to identifying operational improvements reflected genuine understanding rather than theoretical speculation. "I developed a modified flight planning algorithm," Maya continued, opening her folder to reveal additional documentation, "that optimizes altitude changes based on real-time weather data and aircraft-specific performance curves. The fuel savings could be substantial for long-duration missions." Major Walsh had been listening to Maya's technical explanation with growing excitement as she recognized that the child's innovations addressed real operational challenges that military aviation faced daily. Her pilot experience allowed her to appreciate the practical implications of Maya's theoretical work. "Maya," Jennifer said with obvious professional interest, "your approach to flight planning optimization represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking that could benefit our operational efficiency programs. The theoretical framework you've described addresses genuine challenges we encounter with current mission planning procedures." The validation of Maya's technical work by an experienced military pilot created momentum toward practical demonstration that would test whether her academic understanding translated into measurable operational improvements. Colonel Stone found himself increasingly isolated as multiple senior personnel validated Maya's technical expertise, while his continued resistance appeared to reflect personal prejudice rather than professional judgment. The mounting evidence of Maya's legitimate capabilities was undermining his institutional authority. Regardless of her certificate, Stone said with forced authority, "She's still an 8-year-old child whose theoretical knowledge has no practical relevance to actual military flight operations. Paper qualifications don't translate to real-world flying capabilities." The colonel's desperate attempt to maintain his dismissive stance despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary reflected his inability to acknowledge that his initial assessment had been fundamentally wrong about Maya's exceptional capabilities at that moment. The distinctive sound of jet engines spooling up drew everyone's attention toward the flight line, where the F-35 demonstration aircraft was preparing for its delayed presentation. The powerful whine of the advanced fighter's engine created anticipation throughout the crowd as families gathered for the scheduled flight demonstration. Captain Richard Blake, the demonstration pilot, approached the group carrying his flight helmet and looking frustrated about the technical delays that had disrupted his carefully planned presentation schedule. At 32, Blake had established himself as one of the Air Force's most skilled F-35 pilots with extensive combat experience and demonstration flying expertise. "Colonel Stone," Blake announced as he reached the gathering, "the aircraft is ready for demonstration, but we're still experiencing efficiency issues with the mission planning software. The fuel consumption calculations are running about 15% higher than optimal for the planned flight profile." The technical problem Blake described created an unexpected opportunity for Maya to demonstrate the practical value of her flight planning innovations under actual operational conditions rather than theoretical discussion. "Captain Blake, Major," Walsh said with growing excitement about the possibilities, "Miss Chen has developed some interesting approaches to flight planning optimization that might be relevant to the software issues you're experiencing." Blake looked skeptically at the 8-year-old child standing beside the gathering of military personnel, his expression reflecting the same institutional prejudices that had characterized Colonel Stone's initial reaction to Maya's technical capabilities. "Ma'am," Blake replied with polite skepticism, "I appreciate civilian interest in our operations, but flight planning for an F-35 requires specialized knowledge of advanced avionics systems and military operational procedures." Maya stepped forward with her flight planning documentation, maintaining the confident bearing that had characterized her interactions. Throughout the morning, despite continued adult skepticism about her capabilities, "Captain Blake," Maya said, "respectfully, I understand that military operations involve complex requirements, but efficiency optimization principles are the same regardless of aircraft type. Would you be willing to examine my methodology?" Blake's pilot training had taught him to evaluate information based on technical merit rather than source assumptions, though his initial reaction was to dismiss contributions from such an unexpected origin. Master Sergeant Martinez recognized the opportunity to demonstrate Maya's capabilities through practical application. rather than continued theoretical debate about her qualifications and knowledge, Captain Martinez suggested professionally. Miss Chen's flight planning documentation addresses exactly the efficiency issues you're experiencing. Her methodology might provide insights that could solve the software problems. Blake's expression shifted as he processed Martinez's assessment and recognized that experienced enlisted personnel were endorsing Maya's technical contributions. His pilot pragmatism began overriding institutional prejudices about civilian capabilities, right? Blake said after a moment of consideration, "Let me see what you've developed." Maya opened her folder and began explaining her flight planning methodology with the systematic precision of someone whose knowledge had been thoroughly tested through months of study and practical application. The key innovation involves dynamic altitude optimization based on real-time atmospheric conditions, Maya explained, indicating specific calculations on her charts. Instead of using predetermined altitude assignments, the algorithm continuously evaluates optimal flight levels based on wind patterns, temperature variations, and aircraft performance characteristics. Blake studied Maya's documentation with growing appreciation for the sophisticated thinking behind her approach. Her methodology addressed exactly the kind of operational challenges that military pilots encountered daily during mission planning and execution. "This is remarkable work," Blake admitted with obvious professional respect. His initial skepticism replaced by genuine admiration for Maya's technical competence. "Your optimization algorithms could significantly improve fuel efficiency across multiple aircraft types." The validation from an experienced F-35 pilot established Maya's credibility with everyone present while demonstrating that exceptional capabilities deserved recognition, regardless of their unexpected sources. "Captain Blake," Maya said with growing confidence, "would it be possible to test my flight planning methodology on an actual mission? I believe the efficiency improvements would be measurable and significant." Blake's response to Maya's request would determine whether her theoretical knowledge would receive practical validation through actual flight operations or remain dismissed as interesting but irrelevant civilian speculation. "Miss Chen," Blake replied thoughtfully, "testing new flight planning procedures requires extensive safety evaluation and command approval. However, your methodology appears sound enough to warrant serious consideration." Colonel Stone watched the developing enthusiasm for Maya's technical contributions with growing anxiety about losing control of the situation and being forced to acknowledge that his dismissive judgment had been fundamentally wrong. "Captain Blake," Stone interjected with command authority, "we will not be modifying operational procedures based on civilian suggestions. Regardless of how interesting they might appear, our demonstration flights will proceed according to established protocols." Blake's expression reflected internal conflict between respect for command, authority, and professional appreciation for Maya's innovative approach to problems that affected daily flight operations. Dr. Freeman had been observing the interaction dynamics with professional interest in how exceptional children navigated institutional resistance while maintaining confidence in their capabilities despite adult skepticism. "Colonel Stone," Freeman said diplomatically, Miss Chen's pilot certificate and technical knowledge suggests that she might actually be qualified to participate in flight operations under appropriate supervision, but their capabilities appear to exceed normal civilian limitations. The suggestion that Maya might be qualified for actual flight participation rather than simply theoretical consultation represented escalation that Stone was determined to prevent. Before Stone could respond with another dismissive rejection, the conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Brigadier General Patricia Williams, whose presence would transform the entire situation in ways none of them could anticipate. "What's the delay with our demonstration flight?" General Williams asked with command authority as she approached the group, her presence immediately commanding attention from all military personnel present. Major Walsh quickly briefed General Williams on the technical issues affecting the F-35 demonstration and Maya's proposed solutions to the flight planning efficiency problems. The summary highlighted both the operational challenges and the unexpected source of potential solutions. General Williams studied Maya with the evaluating gaze of someone whose career had taught her to recognize exceptional capability regardless of its source or conventional expectations about qualifications and expertise. Miss Chen, General Williams said with respectful authority, "I understand you've developed innovative approaches to flight planning optimization. Would you be willing to discuss your methodology with our flight operations specialists?" Maya felt excitement mixed with nervousness as she realized that her technical work was attracting attention from the highest levels of military command, creating opportunities she had never imagined possible. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied with careful formality. "I would be honored to share my research and explain how the efficiency improvements could benefit military flight operations." General Williams nodded approvingly at Maya's mature response while recognizing that exceptional individuals required institutional support that matched their capabilities rather than dismissal based on demographic assumptions. "Captain Blake," General Williams said with command authority, "I want comprehensive evaluation of Miss Chen's flight planning methodology. If her innovations can improve operational efficiency, we need to understand their potential applications." Blake nodded with military precision while feeling excited about the possibility of testing advanced flight planning concepts that could enhance mission effectiveness and fuel conservation. Colonel Stone realized that his continued resistance to Maya's participation would now require opposing flag officer directives, creating career consequences that could affect his future command opportunities. "General Williams," Stone said carefully, "while Miss Chen's enthusiasm is admirable, I have concerns about involving civilian children in military flight operations regardless of their theoretical knowledge." General Williams turned toward Stone with the kind of measuring gaze that senior officers used when evaluating subordinates whose judgment might be questionable. Colonel Williams replied with quiet authority, "Exceptional capability deserves recognition and development regardless of where it's discovered." Miss Chen's technical knowledge represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking that advances military aviation. The clear directive from General Williams established institutional support for Maya's participation while indicating that Stone's continued resistance reflected poor leadership judgment rather than appropriate professional Caution. Miss Chen, General Williams continued, addressing Maya with official authority that made her words carry lasting institutional weight. Would you be interested in observing our Flight Operations Center and discussing how your planning methodology might be implemented in actual mission scenarios? Maya felt the significance of this opportunity settling around her like recognition that connected her individual achievements to larger purposes that extended beyond personal accomplishment. General Williams, Maya said with quiet confidence, I would be very interested in learning more about military flight operations and sharing how my planning algorithms might help improve mission efficiency. The professional dialogue between Maya and General Williams demonstrated institutional recognition of exceptional civilian expertise, while establishing frameworks for collaborative development of innovative approaches to operational challenges. Captain Blake had been reviewing Maya's flight planning with growing conviction that her innovations could produce measurable improvements in fuel efficiency and mission effectiveness across multiple aircraft platforms. General Blake reported with professional enthusiasm. Miss Chen's optimization algorithms address specific operational challenges that current mission planning software struggles to solve efficiently. Her approach represents genuine advancement in flight planning methodology. The technical validation Blake provided gave General Williams objective evidence for supporting Maya's participation in operational evaluation programs that could benefit military aviation while providing exceptional educational opportunities. Master Sergeant Martinez approached General Williams carrying communication equipment from the Flight Operations Center, his expression indicating important developments that would add another dimension to Maya's extraordinary day. General Williams Martinez announced formally, "We've received authorization from Air Combat Command to conduct experimental flight planning evaluation using civilian-developed methodologies." Ms. Chen's innovations have attracted attention at the highest levels of Air Force leadership. Pentagon-level interest, Martinez reported, meant that Maya's flight planning work was being evaluated for potential implementation across the entire Air Force fleet, representing recognition that transcended local base operations. Maya processed this information with growing awareness that her technical demonstration was creating consequences that extended far beyond anything she had imagined when she simply wanted to share her flight planning improvements. General Williams, Maya said with mature recognition of the significance, honored that my work might help improve Air Force operations, but I also want to make sure that I can continue my normal education and family life. The personal priorities Maya articulated impressed the military leadership present, while highlighting the importance of balancing exceptional opportunities with developmental needs and family relationships. Dr. Freeman stepped forward with professional computer assessment that would influence how Maya's participation in advanced flight operations evaluation would be managed to ensure appropriate protection of her welfare and development. General Freeman reported with psychological expertise. Miss Chen demonstrates exceptional emotional maturity alongside her technical capabilities. She appears psychologically ready for advanced responsibilities if appropriate support systems are maintained. The professional endorsement Freeman provided established Maya's readiness for expanded participation while emphasizing the importance of maintaining protective frameworks that served her individual development alongside institutional objectives. Ms. Chen, General Williams said with official decision-making authority, "The Air Force is prepared to offer you consultation opportunities that would allow your flight planning innovations to be evaluated for potential implementation while respecting your civilian status and educational needs." Maya felt the weight of this institutional recognition while understanding that her response would determine how her exceptional capabilities would be developed and utilized in service to larger purposes. "General Williams," Maya replied with confident maturity, "I would like to contribute to improving Air Force operations through my flight planning research while continuing my pilot training and regular education." The balanced approach Maya articulated demonstrated wisdom that impressed all adults present while establishing frameworks for collaboration that served both individual development and institutional advancement. As the morning sun reached its zenith over Thunder Point Air Force Base, Maya's flight planning documentation had evolved from dismissed civilian curiosity to Pentagon-recognized innovation that would influence military aviation operations across the entire Air Force fleet. Captain Blake approached Maya with flight equipment and an expression that suggested something unprecedented was about to occur. "Miss Chen," Blake said with respectful formality, "General Williams has authorized a practical demonstration of your flight planning methodology. Would you be willing to accompany me in the F-35 to observe how your innovations perform under actual flight conditions?" The invitation represented validation beyond anything Maya had imagined possible, creating opportunities to see her theoretical work translated into practical operational improvements through direct participation in military flight operations. Maya looked toward her parents with excitement mixed with awareness that this opportunity represented a turning point that would affect her entire future relationship with aviation and military service. "Mom, Dad," Maya said quietly, seeking family guidance for a decision that extended far beyond technical demonstration to include fundamental choices about her future development and aspirations. David and Sarah Chen exchanged glances that reflected both parental pride in their daughter's achievements and protective concern about the implications of such advanced opportunities for an 8-year-old child. "Maya," Sarah said with maternal wisdom, "this is your decision to make. We trust your judgment about what feels right for your interests and development." David nodded in agreement while adding paternal perspective about the significance of the opportunity being offered and its potential impact on Maya's future aviation career. "Sweetheart," David said with respect for his daughter's exceptional capabilities, "Captain Blake is offering you a chance to see your innovations tested under real flight conditions. If that's something you want to experience, we support your decision." Maya studied the F-35 Lightning II with eyes that reflected both technical fascination and growing understanding that this moment would define her relationship with aviation for years to come. Her exceptional knowledge was about to receive the ultimate validation through practical demonstration in one of the world's most advanced fighter aircraft. "Captain Blake," Maya said with quiet determination that impressed everyone present. I would be honored to observe how my flight planning methodology performs under actual operational conditions. Blake smiled with genuine respect for Maya's courage and technical competence. Recognizing that he was about to participate in an unprecedented demonstration of civilian innovation applied to military aviation operations. Outstanding, Blake replied with professional enthusiasm. Get you suited up for flight operations. The next 30 minutes involved fitting Maya with appropriate flight equipment, including a specially sized flight suit, helmet, and safety harnesses that would allow her to participate safely in F-35 operations. The base personnel worked with systematic efficiency to ensure every safety protocol was followed. Dr. Freeman conducted rapid psychological assessment to confirm Maya's emotional readiness for advanced flight operations, while medical personnel verified her physical capability to handle the stresses of fighter aircraft maneuvering. Ms. Chen, Dr. Freeman announced after completing her evaluation, "You demonstrate exceptional psychological preparation for advanced flight operations. Your stress management and decision-making capabilities appear adequate for F-35 participation." General Williams observed the preparation activities with satisfaction that institutional recognition of exceptional capability was being translated into appropriate operational opportunities that could benefit both individual development and military effectiveness. Colonel Stone, General Williams said with command authority that made her expectations clear. "I want comprehensive documentation of this demonstration flight and Ms. Chen's flight planning performance. This represents potential breakthrough innovation that warrants official evaluation." Stone nodded with military compliance while internally struggling with the reality that his dismissive judgment had been completely overturned by subsequent events and higher authority. Recognition of Maya's legitimate expertise, Maya climbed into the F-35's rear seat. With careful attention to safety procedures that Captain Blake had explained during their pre-flight briefing, our movements reflected confidence gained through months of pilot training combined with natural aptitude for aviation operations. Miss Chen Blake said through the aircraft's communication system as he completed his pre-flight checks. "I want you to observe how the current mission planning software manages our flight profile, then guide me through implementing your optimization algorithms." Maya studied the F-35's advanced avionics displays with fascination that reflected her theoretical knowledge, being validated through direct interaction with operational military systems. The aircraft's sophistication exceeded even her extensive research and study. "Captain Blake," Maya replied through her helmet microphone, "the current flight plan shows suboptimal altitude selection for these atmospheric conditions. My algorithm suggests we could achieve approximately 12% fuel savings through dynamic altitude management." Blake's expression reflected growing excitement as he recognized that Maya's innovations were producing measurable improvements even before takeoff, validating her theoretical work through practical application to real operational scenarios. "Outstanding analysis," Blake responded with professional admiration. "Let's implement your optimization recommendations and measure the actual performance improvements." The F-35 Lightning II lifted off from Thunder Point Air Force base with smooth power that demonstrated the advanced engineering of modern military aviation. Maya felt exhilaration mixed with professional satisfaction as her flight planning innovations were being tested under actual operational conditions. Throughout the flight, Maya provided real-time optimization recommendations based on changing atmospheric conditions and aircraft performance characteristics. Her algorithms produced fuel efficiency improvements that exceeded even her theoretical predictions. Ms. Chen, Blake announced with obvious amazement as they completed the demonstration flight. Your optimization methodology achieved fuel savings of 15% compared to standard mission planning procedures. This represents revolutionary advancement in flight planning efficiency. Maya felt validation beyond anything she had imagined possible as her years of passionate study and theoretical development were confirmed through practical demonstration in one of the world's most advanced military aircraft. The F-35 landed at Thunder Point Air Force Base. Two crowds of military personnel and civilian families who had gathered to witness the conclusion of an unprecedented demonstration of civilian innovation applied to military aviation operations. General Williams approached the aircraft as Maya and Captain Blake completed their post-flight procedures, our expression reflecting institutional recognition that would transform military approaches to identifying and developing exceptional civilian capabilities. Ms. Chen, General Williams said with official authority as Maya descended from the F-35. Your flight planning innovations have demonstrated measurable operational improvements that warrant immediate implementation across Air Force flight operations. Congratulations on revolutionary contribution to military aviation efficiency. Maya felt overwhelming gratitude mixed with awareness that her extraordinary day had created opportunities and responsibilities that would influence her entire future relationship with aviation and military service. Colonel Stone approached Maya with expression that reflected complete transformation from his initial dismissive skepticism to genuine respect for capabilities that had exceeded every professional assumption about civilian expertise and age-related limitations. Ms. Chen, Stone said with sincere humility that marked personal growth through acknowledgement of previous errors. I owe you an apology for my initial assessment of your capabilities. Your innovations represent exactly the kind of breakthrough thinking that advances military aviation. And I was wrong to dismiss your contributions based on assumptions rather than evidence. Maya accepted Stone's apology with grace that reflected emotional maturity alongside her technical expertise. Understanding that institutional learning required individuals to acknowledge and correct previous misconceptions. Thank you, Colonel Stone, Maya replied with respectful formality. I understand that my capabilities might seem unusual, but I hope this demonstration shows that good ideas can come from unexpected sources when they're given appropriate consideration. The philosophical wisdom Maya articulated impressed everyone present while establishing principles about intellectual openness and institutional flexibility that would guide future approaches to recognizing exceptional capabilities regardless of their origins. Dr. Freeman approached Maya with documentation that would establish frameworks for continued collaboration between her exceptional capabilities and military aviation development programs while protecting her developmental needs and family relationships. Miss Chen Freeman announced with professional satisfaction. The Air Force is prepared to offer you ongoing consultation opportunities that would allow your innovations to be implemented across the fleet while respecting your civilian status and educational priorities. Maya felt excitement about contributing to military aviation advancement while maintaining the family life and educational freedom that were essential for her continued development as both an exceptional innovator and a healthy young person.
Dr.
Freeman, Maya replied with mature decision-making. I would be honored to continue contributing to Air Force flight planning improvement while maintaining my regular education and family relationships. The balanced approach Maya articulated demonstrated wisdom that would guide appropriate institutional collaboration while ensuring that exceptional achievements enhanced rather than replaced normal childhood experiences as the afternoon sun began its descent over Thunder Point Air Force Base. Maya's flight planning documentation had evolved from dismissed civilian curiosity to Pentagon-recognized innovation that would influence military aviation operations for years to come. Eugene and Sarah Chen watched their daughter's institutional recognition with emotions that mixed parental pride with amazement at how quickly circumstances had transformed from routine air show attendance to unprecedented opportunities for exceptional individual development. Maya, Sarah said with maternal wisdom. Your achievements today have opened doors that we never imagined possible. We're proud of your technical accomplishments and equally proud of how you've handled these extraordinary circumstances. David nodded in agreement while adding perspective about the significance of Maya's demonstration for military aviation advancement, an individual recognition of exceptional civilian capabilities. Sweetheart, David said with paternal respect, you've proven that excellence recognizes no boundaries of age or background. Your innovations will help make military aviation safer and more efficient while inspiring others to pursue their own exceptional capabilities. Maya looked around at the military personnel and civilian families who had witnessed her extraordinary day, feeling grateful for the recognition while understanding that her achievements represented just the beginning of a lifetime dedicated to aviation advancement. Thank you all for believing in my capabilities and helping me understand that exceptional gifts come with responsibilities to use them in service to others, Maya said with mature appreciation that impressed everyone present. General Williams approached Maya with final institutional recognition that would establish her legacy within military aviation history while ensuring continued opportunities for exceptional development. Miss Chen, General Williams announced, with command authority, your flight planning innovations will be designated the Chen Optimization Protocol and implemented across all Air Force aircraft types. Your contribution represents breakthrough advancement that will benefit military aviation for decades to come. Maya felt profound satisfaction knowing that her passionate study and innovative thinking would continue helping military personnel accomplish their missions more efficiently and safely long after her extraordinary day at Paretta, Thunder Point Air Force Base. The Nevada sun cast long shadows across the base as Maya walked with her family toward their car. Her flight planning folder now containing official documentation of innovations that had challenged every assumption about expertise, age, and the unexpected sources from which breakthrough ideas could emerge. 6 months later, the Chen optimization protocol had been implemented across the entire Air Force fleet, generating fuel savings that exceeded $200 million annually while improving mission effectiveness and operational safety. Maya continued her pilot training and regular education while serving as a consultant for advanced flight planning research. Her story became a testament to the power of recognizing excellence wherever it appeared, proving that institutional flexibility could accommodate exceptional capabilities while protecting individual development and family relationships. Maya had demonstrated that brilliance truly recognized no rank, age, or social status when it came to advancing aviation safety and efficiency. The young girl, who had been dismissed by a colonel for her sophisticated flight planning, had become the youngest consultant in Air Force history, whose innovations improved military aviation operations while inspiring a new generation of exceptional individuals to pursue their own breakthrough contributions to service and excellence. The legacy of Maya's extraordinary day endured in the more efficient aircraft operations that incorporated her optimization protocols. The institutional policies that encouraged recognition of exceptional civilian capabilities, and the proof that innovation could emerge from the most unexpected sources when curiosity was nurtured with wisdom, respect, and institutional courage to acknowledge that expertise had no age limitations. Her flight planning folder had become a symbol of how exceptional achievements could transform both individual lives and institutional approaches to recognizing and developing breakthrough innovations that served purposes larger than personal recognition while honoring the family relationships and educational freedom that made such achievements possible. The end. Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoy this one, you won't want to miss this. Just click to watch and don't forget to subscribe.